Hey everybody, good morning, good Sunday morning, God's Sunday morning, or afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are. But right here, we are in the Central Time Zone. It is approximately 9:15. My name is Tracy Brown, and we are here for the Sunday morning Science of Mind class. If by chance this is your first time being with us, every Sunday morning at 9:15 Central Time, we come together, we look at the contents of the Science of Mind textbook written by Ernest Holmes, and then we talk about it. So today we'll be beginning on page 145 near the bottom. The section title is One with God. And we'll read it, and then we will talk about it. Your questions, your insights, how it applies to you, what you don't understand about it, and what you think about it. So before we begin with the reading, I invite you to join me in simply taking a very, very, very deep breath in, grounding ourselves in this perfect moment, this perfect opportunity to not only explore the science of mind, but to use the contents of science of mind to expand and evolve our individual lives and the life of the world collectively. Yes, and so it is. So, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you are at home, I hope you have something warm and fulfilling and refreshing. But I need some tea because I can feel my throat getting a little scratchy. So let's begin 145 near the bottom, One with God. Read along with me if you have the book, or simply take it in. Until we awake to the fact that we are one in nature with God, we shall not find the way of life. Until we realize that our own word has the power of life, we will not see clearly. The Bible points out that man has the same power in his own life and in his own world that it claims for God. The Word was with God, and the Word was God is an often quoted, oft repeated, but little understood statement. The promise to man is equally positive. The Word is nigh thee, even in thine own mouth, that thou shouldst know it and do it. If any word has power, it follows that all words have power. It means that every word which we hear, speak, or think has some power. Rereading. Until we awake to the fact that we are one in nature with God, we shall not find the way of life. Until we realize that our own word has the power of life, we will not see clearly. The Bible points out that humanity has the same power in its own life and in its own world that it claims for God. Quote, "The Word was with God and the Word was God," end quote, is an oft-repeated but little understood statement. The promise to humanity is equally positive. The Word, quote, "the Word is nigh thee, even in thine own mouth, that thou shouldst know it and do it," end quote. If any word has power, it follows that all words have power. It means that every word which we hear, speak, or think has some power. Okay, so this is a very short subsection in the chapter, but it's meaty, and my guess is we need all the time we could have in order to talk about it. What it means, how it feels, how you're already applying it, what keeps you from applying it. So we're going to dive in. Now, I want to remind you that just before this section, last week we talked about thoughts are things. That, right, this entire chapter is about the power of thought and how what we think manifests or shows up in our experience individually and the experience collectively of the world. So last week, that section, Thoughts Are Things, ended with a realization of the presence of God is the most powerful healing agency known to the mind of man. So it ended with this idea that if thoughts are things, that's really important. And it's important to understand that each one of us is the presence of God. And so when I realized that the presence of God is in me, then what I'm thinking must manifest. Because I'm thinking it, and the presence and the power of God is within me. It is the nature of God to give and to produce and to create. And I am made in the spiritual image and likeness of that. And so it is my essential nature to create based on what I think, based on what I choose. So that's where we ended, and then this week it starts off with, until we are awake to the fact that we are capital O1. We are one with that nature. We are one with God. We are one being, but until we awake to that fact, we shall not find the way of life. Until we realize, second sentence, if you have the book, read it with me. Until we realize that our own word has the power of life, we will not see clearly. Now, I could just put the book down at that point, because this whole thing about, until I realize my own word has the power. Now, I hear you, and I know some of you online are going, I got the power, right? It's like, I've got that. That is the power. It is not just something that is over there, up there in the sky, outside of me. I have got the power. And the power of thought is how I use that power. What am I thinking about? What am I requesting, demanding? What am I claiming? And we study from the perspective, especially when we're first learning this and learning to apply it, we talk about it in the I, right? I am that I am. And what am I thinking or claiming for myself? And we do that because it's a practical way to learn, but what we're really learning is about how it all works. So it is what I claim, but what 8.1 billion people are claiming also has a collective impact, right? What 3 billion people in the U.S. or in North America are claiming is what then creates the collective experience of our society, right? So we will probably talk about it today in the context of individually. Tracy's saying, and what are your thoughts delivering? What are you thinking, and how is it showing up in your life? Do you like what you're delivering to yourself? Or do you maybe want to change what you're thinking about so that you can change what you manifest? I don't know. Only you know. But, we can think about it in the personal individual because we can reach that. We can touch it. We can feel it. Just please don't forget that it works in the collective as well. Okay, so I am ready to dive in. I have so many examples going through my head, but this is not a one-way conversation. This is a conversation. If it's one way, it's not a conversation anyway. This is not a one-person monologue. This is a conversation. So that means I have to hear from you. I have to hear from you in the room. What are you thinking? Does it make sense? Are there questions? I don't know. But we do have some ground rules. So I'm going to turn to Ryan Brown and let him tell us what to do.
Well, good morning to you, Dr. Tracy. So glad that you're here with us today. And I love her fabulous dress. Not only that, but for those online, it has pockets. I'm just saying. The ultimate equation there. So thank you for turning it over to me. And hello to everybody here in the room. Thanks, Willie, the one person who waved at me. Thank you. Thanks. Hi. I see you. You see me.
Guilting people.
And I see everyone here online, and I see the questions that you're putting inside of the chat already, so I'll bring those here into the room.
Yes.
And for the folks who are joining us via Zoom, we'd love to hear from you as well, and you can do that by clicking on the raise your hand icon located down below, and or you can put your questions and comments inside of the chat. And hola, buenos dias, and that's all I'm going to say for all of our folks joining us all over the world here on Facebook Live. We love that you're here in community with us today. Make sure to check in, tell us where you're watching us from, and also make sure to put your questions and comments, and I'll bring those into the room as well. And I always like to mention that I keep the chats anonymous. That way we can continue to have a safe container for spiritual growth. So I'll get us started off with the comment that came in the chat, and then we'll poll here to the audience and see if we have any thoughts. This one says, sometimes in Science of Mind, we hear every word has power, and sometimes we hear the words we use that are attached to an emotion have power. And sometimes we hear that it is the sum total of our thoughts and words that is creative. I'm sure it's all true, but it sometimes feels like different messages. What's your thoughts about that, Tracy?
Yes. Yes.
And we're moving to the next.
Moving right along. No, so yes, all of those statements are true. And in kind of the reverse order is the way they were listed is the way that I would encourage all of us to really hone in on. So it's important to understand that every word, meaning every lowercase w word, meaning every word in whatever language we speak, has power. This is true. And it doesn't matter whether we're speaking it or whether we are thinking it. It all has a meaning, and we're putting meaning to it. But we don't have to worry about, is every single individual word we speak going to manifest? Because what we manifest is the result of either emotion and or habit. So with the second two, emotion attached to the word or habit, like the frequency. So it's frequency or dominance. Those are kind of equal in this way. We probably all have had examples in our own life where something happened and we realized we just got a charge from it, either because we were super excited or super afraid, and we did something or something manifested like almost immediately. Many of us have, read stories or seen articles about, someone who, just imagine the idea of you're a parent and your child is pinned under something heavy, and then by miracle you lift it because your emotions are rushing, the adrenaline is rushing, and your primary thing is, I have to save my child, and you are not strong enough to lift whatever that is, because I'm not going to say a car, it could just be anything, right? They're caught in something, and you lift it all by yourself. The manifestation is a reflection of the extreme level of emotion. I have to do this. I am doing this. There's no thought about, I can't do that. Oh, that's too hard for me. You just do it. And the power of the word when emotion is attached is like that. That's also why it works in the positive and it works in what we would label the negative. If we're super, super afraid, and then we start getting more of that and more things to be afraid of, it's because the power of our emotion, we're so attached to it, we're putting our faith into whatever that emotion is. And the universe says, oh, you want more of that? Okay. You want to feel like that more? Okay, great. But the primary thing that we teach, because we know our spiritual practice is ongoing, is that it is the frequency and the dominance of the thought. And so if we are thinking something habitually over and over and over, that is going to override an old belief or false. It's also why we do affirmations. It's also why in spiritual mind treatment, we claim and demand over and over and over. So all three are true. You don't have to decide between them, because it depends on what's going on in your life at the moment. One final comment, and then we'll come into the room maybe, or not. One final comment about that is that when we say we speak our word with a capital W, then we are intentionally claiming. And in that case, whether we are using spiritual mind treatment or we are just making a demand upon the universe, it is important that we combine emotion and then frequency. But in that case, a lot of times it's the emotion. So if you're doing a spiritual mind treatment and you are like, I need more money in my life, and Ernest Holmes says I could have more money in my life because I claim it now, and this will make me very happy, and I have money in my life so that I can buy a new car and I can pay my bills, and it's a great thing. I'm not going to believe you, and neither is the universe. Like, I'm going to believe in your head you want more money. But if instead your treatment is like, I have the money I need, I can see myself driving a new car, it's red, and I deserve it, and I've worked really hard, so this is so great that I have all the money I need to pay my bills. I enjoy writing the check, and I put a smiley face on every check that I write. I know most of you don't write checks anymore. It's just an example. Get over it. And and this, woohoo, my life has changed completely, right? That emotion is going to escalate the energy that you are disrupting, called I don't have enough money. The energy is disrupting what your brain has gotten attached to and has accepted as true. The energy, so I might even start replacing emotion with energy, because you have to exceed the energy of whatever you're trying to change. And it knows you. It has you captured. So if you want something different, you have to vibrate at a higher, stronger, more demanding energy level. And that's all I'll say about that. So we're going to come in the room, yes?
Yeah, it looks like I saw Carmen.
I saw at least
had
one
her
hand.
up.
And
Whoever hand up, Jerry, you did? Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well,
and say
Hi,
your
good morning.
name. Yes.
I'm Brian, and it's not really a question. It's more of a kind of a metaphor observation. Kind of wishing Ross was here today. Have you ever felt like you're in a scripted reality TV show? And so now, relating to what we're talking about today, if our words have power and our thoughts have power, whose words are they? And in some ways, the idea of a scripted reality, some of them are scripted and some of them are our own. And where's that coming from?
Ooh, I love that idea. Scripted reality show. Ooh. And the reality, quote unquote, reality of what we've been experiencing in the physical manifest world. But I can read a different script, even if I don't quite believe it yet. What is the script that is required to change the circumstance? That's what I'm doing when I do a spiritual mind treatment. That step 3 in spiritual mind treatment, I am reading, thinking, speaking, writing the script for what should happen in this episode of my life. And, I wish I could remember. Maybe somebody online will remember or look up the lyrics really fast. There is a song by Cree and Hetty, K-R-I, Cree and Hetty. And it's a song called Guest House. And there is a line in there, and it's based on the Rumi poem where Rumi says, let all your emotions come in and treat them like a guest and then let them go. That's kind of the basis of the poem. But there's a line in the song where they say something about, they sing something about, it's like I'm on TV on a channel, or life is happening on a TV show that I haven't watched on a channel that I don't get. And so, right, it's like, so let's reframe that, right? I love that, scripted reality show.
So we'll go to Carmen, and then I have a comment here on the inside of the chat.
Cool.
Carmen, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, I'm Carmen. And so I know I brought it up in the past, the last couple of weeks, but, I had affirmed that me and my son's relationship was going to, we was going to harmonize, and we was going to, see eye to eye, and that, he would see me as his mother and everything. And so I spoke that everything would be good. And I said, I let it go. I let it go. Didn't even think nothing about it. And it appeared to where one day he just said, Mom, I love you. I said, I love you too. But something shifted in my consciousness. And at that point, I knew how valuable I was to him. And ever since then, he moved into his apartment. I didn't go to his housewarming party. He didn't invite me to anything because we just wasn't on the same page. Now he's calling me. He's inviting me over to his house. Even though the stuff is still going on around me, but I'm not triggered. Emotionally, it comes up, but then I let it go because I know my worth, my value in my son's life. So what's happening out here doesn't really matter because I know. And so just recently he had a pool party, and he invited me. He kept calling, Mom, you gonna come? You gonna come? Like, I couldn't come because I was doing something else, but it's just that shift in my perception, me perceiving how I hear things. I hear it differently. I see it differently. And so it was that shift in my mindset and that subconsciousness, I guess, of me letting it go and affirming, to where, and it took time. It didn't happen overnight. It took time. But I had to actually let it go. Just let it go.
No?
And trust the process. And that's what I did. And so this is the outcome of me actually letting something go, not trying to control outcome, not trying to control the ending. And now he calls me every morning, Mom, how are you doing? Call me when you make it home. Like, we have this good relationship now. And so it's just like you're saying, like me just affirming that, and now it's here. So, so that gave me a little oomph in believing what I say comes to my reality.
The power of your word. And yes, once you speak the word with conviction, with energy, with clarity, you do have to let it go, get out of the way, and let the universe do what it needs to do to make it work. But one of the things you said that is so critical that we often forget, the condition may not change that we think is causing whatever's going on. Right, the outward condition may not change, or things may still be happening. What does change is our perception, how we interpret, and then things start fitting together, but it may still be in the same environment, right, with other influences. This happens a lot with people, well, it happens a lot in families, but it also happens a lot in our work settings, right? Because if we start claiming, I work I report to someone who values my worth, and the team is a great team and all these things. So the people on the team may not change. And 2 or 3 of them may still do the same things that irritated you 6 weeks ago, but all of a sudden it's like, that's who Jerry is. I'm not going to change Jerry. And so, right, I can't change Jerry, but some other energy happens where people are talking with each other differently, where people are engaged with each other differently, where the assignments you get are different. Or you're working less with Jerry and more with Ryan. Right? Things shift. And then we have to be awake enough to notice it and go, TSRW, TSRW, TSRW. Like, oh, the power of my word, it works. Quickly, were you going to add something?
Yes, and you know what? I think it was, since I didn't know my position and my place in his life, I looked for outside validation. And so now that I know that my value in my relationship to him, that's why the stuff around me doesn't bother me anymore, because I don't need that validation, because I already know, so it doesn't bother me anymore.
Great example. Ryan.
So this question says, I've heard and experienced that thoughts exist in the collective, and we embody them based upon the frequency we resonate with. How does this connection to the collective affect how we intentionally claim our thoughts?
Read it again.
I've heard and experienced that thoughts exist in the collective, and we embody them based upon the frequency we resonate with. How does this connection to the collective affect how we intentionally claim our thoughts?
So I am going to maybe make a connection and maybe not. Let's see. So what's happening in the collective is the accumulation of all the individuals. And remember, we have many collectives. So there is a collective called the Collective Consciousness of CSLDallas. Like, what we think, what we teach, what we practice, how we engage with one another. And it does impact, like, many of us will show up online or in person because we want some of that energy, right? And it's not even about, oh, I want to see Carmen today. It's about, I want to be in that energy. But that happens with our family as a collective. It happens with our neighborhood as a collective, our city, our state, our nation, the globe. So we're all a part of many, many, many collectives. And so we have to remember that even as we are talking about this. And do we grab what we resonate with? To a certain degree, yes. But we also are affected by and reflect a lot that's in the collective that we may never have thought about or intentionally chosen. One of the examples I use a lot is, the statistic that many of us have heard or read or just absorbed that, this is not the actual statistic, but it's an example. 50% of women between the age of 35 and 55 will have cancer or will have breast cancer. Like somewhere along, because of statistics of what has happened in the past, there's this consciousness in American or maybe North American culture that breast cancer is a common thing for women in a certain age group, and a third of the women are going to have it. I may never, ever intentionally say, I am raising my hand to be one of those women. But because it's a collective consciousness, I may become one of those women. And I may become one of those women because of the collective consciousness, or I may become one of those women because while I've never thought about having cancer and didn't choose it, I may have been for the last year saying, I love what I'm learning in Science of Mind, and my life is going really well, and I want to deepen my faith. I want to deepen the way I integrate spiritual practice into my life. And it may be that being diagnosed with cancer is the way. Right? So I may be intentionally focusing on something else, but the path to that uses the collective consciousness to get me there. So it's not an easy, direct equation, but our human brains want it to be, right? Because we've been socialized. It's right or wrong. It's this or that. But it's not that simple. And I am a little sad that I can't give you just a simple, oh yes, this is how it works and this is what happens. But we can extrapolate the idea of there's a lot out there that's optional, that's just floating, and I can tap into it. That is sometimes true. That is true. But everything that happens in my life is not because I intentionally chose it. At least at the level I can see from a human perspective. Ryan.
All right, I'm going to ask Marjorie to go ahead and unmute yourself. Marjorie, did you have a question that you wanted to share?
Come on, Marjorie.
Hi, Tracy. How are you today?
Great.
Oh, good, good. So I'm reading the section for today, and then I've been reading Dr. Jim Lockhart, his blog post. The current one that he's got going now is like at least a 5-part series on trying to update our teaching in Science of Mind to match the scientific understanding that we have about human capabilities, the brain, all of these different things. And so the teaching pretty much says that every cause has an effect, every thought becomes a thing. And the modern science that we're learning now is that not every human being has the same capacities to
I absolutely love two things at this moment. I absolutely love, Marjorie, that you are such an avid reader and collector of all that's going on, not just with science of mind, but in metaphysics overall. I absolutely love that. And the second thing in this moment I'm so grateful for is that you bring your observations and your questions and comments into our Sunday morning class, because I think it really gives everyone something to think about and to consider. So thank you for that. So I have gone on record so many times now, so you won't be, Marjorie, you won't be surprised. Other people may not have heard it as much as you may have. It's kind of what I was saying right before the comment. We're trained to think binary. It's got to be right, or it's got to be wrong, or it's got to be this, or it's got to be that. And one of the things we know in philosophy in general and in culture as well is that it's more complex than that, and there are a lot of layers. So what I focus on with science of mind is not whether it's right or wrong, but what are the universal principles that applied 5,000 years ago, that will apply 5,000 years from now. What are these universal principles? Now, the examples I might use to prove or demonstrate those principles may reflect whatever is current in culture, whatever has been discovered, because we don't really create anything, we discover how to use the laws. And so I am perfectly comfortable and in fact excited about how do we use current day examples to demonstrate the universal principles, and how do we integrate that which we have learned over the decades or over the centuries that maybe was not in the common culture when something was written. And so the example might change, but the universal principle does not. That's where Tracy individually stands. And I think one of the reasons that I process it that way is because we do the exact same thing. We don't say that Plato was wrong. We say, here's the universal principle that Plato presented. And how that shows up today with the information we have, here's a demonstration of that. Or we say, here is what this philosopher said or wrote about. And in addition to that, based on what maybe it's current science or maybe it's current culture, that now living in this part of the world, here's what I would add to it. But I'm not changing the universality of the foundation. I'm simply using additional things to describe it. So in this moment, I am not so much you won't hear me say, and I can only in this case speak for myself, you won't hear me say ever in the foreseeable future, unless something changes, you won't hear me say, oh, we need to rewrite the Science of Mind textbook. Because I'm pulling the universal principles. But if I were rewriting it, I would use different examples to prove or demonstrate the universal principle that Ernest Holmes is presenting. So I don't know, I rambled a little bit, but you gave me a big, meaty, two-part question or two-part comment to react to. So really, Marjorie, it's amazing. I love how you're bringing the different pieces together. Online or in the room?
Does anybody have any last thoughts here in the room? It looks like Jerry. Yeah, let's go over to him.
Hello, I'm Jerry, and this may relate more to last week than this week, but something I've been going back and forth with, right? In the USA, a lot of federal employees suddenly lost their careers, long-term careers.
Yes.
And someone, I'm not going to mention any names, who has been studying this philosophy, I'll say over 20 years, way longer than I have, expressed some happiness because they said, oh, that means they're going to lower my taxes. And I'm like, I questioned, well, if I study this for 20 years, one of the personal things I want to get out of it is not to that duality of saying my good has to come from somebody else's unhappiness. So that's one of the ways I want to grow spiritually. And so I'm like, well, if I study this for 20 years, another 15 years, am I going to be still taking pleasure at somebody else's missing out because that's the only way I get my good? So anyway, I'm going back and forth with that, And I know I have some personal things I want. They want lower taxes. I may want something personal like to be sort of at the front of a line if I'm in a line for something. So that is personal, so that may be equal to their financial considerations. So anyway, that's something that I've been going back and forth with. I hope to be more, my choice is to have more oneness, and still have me and my closest people to get our good, but just without having somebody else to go through hardness. Thanks.
Woo! Yes. So you don't have to go back and forth about that anymore. I'm so glad you verbalized it, because this going back and forth is done. So you can study these principles and these practices for the next 15 years and have 20 years behind you, and you will walk through your life wanting your good, knowing you can have your good, and everybody else gets to have their good as well. Okay? So no going back and forth. That person is obviously not your mental equivalent, is not your spiritual prototype, and you're good. Okay? Are we good? Okay, now let me talk about the other person. The other person is good too. The other person, the person you're referring to, is just like you and me, a human being. And it's really so fabulous that we're we're in the Lenten season, the season of Lent, and we're approaching Easter, where we get to be reminded in a couple of weeks on quote unquote Easter Sunday that Spirit and I are one. But how often in every one of our everyday lives are we led by the human and not by the Spirit? That person made a comment from their humanness on the human physical reaction. But if you stop and that you could go to that same person and say, what's the spiritual basis for that? And they would take a breath, if they've been in the movement 20 years, and go, oh, what I want for me, I want for everyone, right? They would remember the principle. Anything I pray for you, I'm also praying for it for me. Anything I'm celebrating about what's happening in your life, it means I would celebrate it if it's happening in my life. So if I feel pretty confident, having no idea who the person was, if they've been in Science of Mind for 20 years, if you said, ooh, that's a real understandable human reaction. But let's go to the spiritual side. They would be like, oh, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I bet their family is really struggling. So we speak from our human, then we go back to our spirit. And you don't have to worry about it because you're being led by spirit. And our time is up. We're past 10 a.m. Central Time. Wherever you are, I'm so glad that you came with us today. But I'm gonna ask you to hang out for 2 more minutes because I never want to close this class without Ryan sharing what's hot at CSL Dallas this week.
Well, thank you, Dr. Tracy. I appreciate that. And giving me 2 minutes is far too much.
Great. Then make it 30 seconds.
All right. We have a special guest in the house today, Dr. Patrick Harbula. And if you don't know, now you know. He is going to be talking about your shadow side. And he's doing a fabulous workshop after the celebration today. It's called Exploring the Unconsciousness. And that will be from 1 to 4 p.m. It's going to be both in person and online. It's going to be an amazing course about shadow work. And then there's a deeper dive. It's an 8-week course that he'll be hosting. The first one will be here in person and online starting Monday, April 7th. So you guys want to be there for that. And then the next following 7 more courses are going to be online only. So make sure to check out our website, CSLDallas.org. Get registered now because Dr. Patrick Harbula is going to sell out, I'm sure.
Yes. Have a great week, everybody.